Kelly's heart stopped the moment her daughters did, literally, for 15 excruciating seconds. After months of pleading, pushing, and being dismissed by doctors at 7 different hospitals, the unthinkable finally happened. Haley stopped breathing. The hospital room, once full of quiet murmurs and rhythmic monitors, fell utterly silent. Then came the scream, piercing, primal. But this isn't just a story of survival against the odds. It's about a mother who refused to be silenced. A baby who found her voice on the edge of life, and a question that still echoes in every heartbeat: do you trust instinct, or believe in miracles? It all began on a still October night in a quiet Oregon town. 9 months pregnant, Kelly stretched out on the living room couch, her hand resting on her belly. Something was off. The baby hadn't moved for hours. Normally, it wouldn't have raised alarm. Babies sleep, after all. But this silence felt different. Kelly played the familiar lullaby from her phone, the one that always brought a kick or a roll. Nothing, just silence, heavy, full-body silence that didn't feel like rest. It felt like a warning. Her husband, Bobby, had gone to bed earlier, comforted by the idea that everything was fine. Kelly didn't follow. She remained on the couch, wrapped in an old quilt, clutching an untouched glass of water. The tick of the clock in the kitchen felt louder than usual. Like time itself was holding its breath. A sudden sharp pain struck. Not the rhythmic pull of a contraction, but something stranger, darker. It passed quickly, but Kelly could feel its weight linger inside her. She stood slowly, the chill of the kitchen floor biting her feet, her body telling her what no monitor or doctor yet could. Something was wrong. Still, there was no proof, just a knowing. She remembered what her mother had always said. A mother always knows. Even when no one else believes you. Until now, it had felt like folklore. Now, it felt like prophecy. Then the pressure came, odd, intense, and rising like a tide. A bloom of pain opened in her lower back and spread across her abdomen. Her breath caught, her skin turned clammy. The moment faded, but everything inside her had shifted. Something unseen had changed. She couldn't explain it, only feel it. At precisely 4:13 a.m., beneath sterile fluorescent lights, Haley entered the world. 7 pounds, 7 ounces, a full head of dark hair. Her first cry was more like a whisper. Bobby beamed with relief and pride, reassured by the numbers on the chart. Everything, it seemed, was fine, but Kelly knew better. Haley lay still in her bassinet, limbs tucked close, unmoving. She didn't root for milk or stretch her tiny hands. Her breaths came out in faint wheezes, like a miniature accordion straining to fill its bellows. The nurses moved around them gently, speaking in soft tones, offering quiet reassurances. But their eyes, their glances said something else. Kelly watched them closely. She saw what they weren't saying. The room had grown colder, not in temperature, but in presence. Something invisible had stepped in. A shadow, a question, a truth too big to ignore. And it was only the beginning. Kelly listened closely. The breathing wasn't right. Raspy, strained. In recovery, she held Haley tighter, hoping it was just the normal roughness of new life. But each breath was effortful. Her sternum pulsed visibly, as if her bones worked to lift her lungs. Alone, Kelly whispered to her, stroked her cheek. No response. A nurse said it was fine, normal stats, nothing to worry about. But fine didn't sound like this. Kelly felt it deep inside, a scream no one else could hear, a mother's knowing. What if this sound never went away? Later, when Bobby brought Ethan to meet his sister, Kelly didn't say much. She watched them smile for photos, capturing joy. But beneath it all, that quiet rasp remained, too soft to raise alarm, too persistent to ignore. At home, unease settled like fog. Haley fed, but without eagerness, slept, but lightly. Her breathing stayed uneven, limbs stiff, gaze unfocused. Doctors found nothing wrong. You're doing great, they said, but Kelly wasn't sure. She began researching, cautiously at first, then obsessively. Forums, blogs, notebooks filled with notes. To others, she seemed calm, but behind each page was fear. Something was wrong, and she was the only one who believed it. When she voiced concern, Bobby reassured her. Babies are weird sometimes. He wasn't dismissive, just convinced it was normal. Kelly didn't argue, but inside her, something hardened, not mistrust, instinct, a knowing louder than comfort. It began that quiet night in the kitchen. Now it echoed with every wheeze, every blank stare. Her fear wasn't of the unknown. It was of being right, at Haley's first checkup. The pediatrician barely looked up. Kelly described the breathing, the stiffness, the chest, congestion. He said, "Try not to worry," but she was worried, so she started documenting. Feeding times, breath patterns, gaze drift, not obsession, evidence. For clinics, same reassurances. One suggested new mom anxiety. "This isn't my first," Kelly said. Another blamed postpartum stress. "Rest more." Kelly smiled, said nothing, but something inside her cracked. Not her mind, her faith. She sat in her car, rain on the windshield, staring at her reflection. She knew this wasn't anxiety, it was certainty. That night, she made a promise. If no one would listen, she'd make them. The next morning, she opened a fresh notebook and began writing. No flourishes, just facts. To Bobby, it looked like coping, but to Kelly, it was preparation. She filmed Haley's breathing, quiet, strained, each clip labeled. She studied rare conditions during naps, joined forums under a false name. Her notes became laced with complex terms: enzyme deficiencies, skeletal anomalies, regression. Before 4 months, 20 pages were filled. When Bobby suggested she take a break, she nodded, but she didn't stop. Haley's wheeze hadn't, neither had her certainty. One night, after Haley gagged and went limp in her arms, Kelly stood in the hallway and cried. Not from fear, but from the weight of being the only one who knew. The next morning, she booked a specialist. "I want another opinion," she told Bobby. He didn't argue. Something in her eyes stopped him cold. She walked into that clinic carrying her notebook like armor. She didn't know if they'd listen, but she was done being quiet. At home, things shifted. Words went unsaid. Bobby asked how her day was. She said, "Fine." He held Haley, praised Kelly, but his shoulders tensed when she opened the notebook. Then came the word she feared. "You're making yourself sick over this." She said nothing, but she felt the distance between them. And between what he saw and what she knew, a cliff ahead. Night stretched. Bobby moved to the guest room. No fights, just quiet logistics. Intimacy faded into routine. Ethan noticed. He drew more. One day, Kelly saw a picture on the fridge. Their family. All smiling, except Haley, just an empty circle. When she asked why, he only shrugged. But the next drawing was the same, and the one after that. That night, Kelly sat beside Ethan as he drifted off. The baby monitor clicked. Haley's breathing filled the room. Still there, still wrong. One night, as Kelly tucked Ethan in, he whispered, "Sometimes I think she's not going to stay." Kelly froze. He clutched his stuffed elephant and turned over. His breathing was steady, effortless, in contrast. The nursery's silence felt suffocating. Grief wasn't loud. It crept in like fog. She returned to the guest room, no longer sure it was hers. Down the hall, Bobby turned off the light without a word. Mornings became quiet routines. Coffee, bottles, insurance calls. They spoke in fragments. What hurt most wasn't Bobby's silence. It was his lack of curiosity. He no longer asked how she was, or what she feared. Kelly carried both children alone now, one in her arms, one slipping away. Ethan began to cling more, asking impossible questions. "Will Haley be okay? Do you still love me too?" Kelly gave him what she could. Stories, baking, bedtime routines. But Haley's cough always interrupted. Each time she left to check the monitor, she saw Ethan's disappointed eyes. One day, she found him folding Haley's onesies. "So they'll be ready if she comes home," he said, then quietly added, "or if she doesn't." That night, Kelly flipped through her notebook. Every page was a cry unanswered. She paused on one of Ethan's drawings, their family in a park, Haley, floating in the sky, smiling. Kelly closed the notebook and held it close. She had to keep fighting, not just for Haley, but for the family quietly unraveling around her. Days blurred. Parking lots, hospital corridors, waiting rooms. She packed a dedicated medical bag now. Diapers, formula, documents, questions. She stopped expecting answers, but never stopped asking. 3 Oregon hospitals turned into 7. Over 800 miles driven in 2 weeks. Bobby joined when he could, but mostly, it was Kelly and Haley, just the two of them. car cluttered with coffee cups and receipts, the radio on, but unheard. Haley didn't cry. She just breathed, wrong, but quiet. Kelly knew every nuance of that sound. She could tell the difference between rest and risk. After another dismissal in Spokane, she sat alone in a hospital cafeteria, coffee untouched. Then a stranger noticed. She breathes like my son did. Hurler syndrome, the woman said. Doctors hadn't listened to her either. By the time they did, it was too late. She left without another word, but Kelly wrote the name down like a lifeline. That night, in a motel bathroom, Kelly searched. Hurler syndrome. Her breath caught. The symptoms, all of them, matched. The stiff joints, the puffiness, the bulging chest, the gaze, the wheeze, and then, a lead, a clinical trial, UCLA. Dr. Joyce Fox, enzyme therapy, cord blood transplant, experimental. But it gave her something she hadn't had in months, direction. The next morning, she packed the car, Haley asleep in the back, medical articles in the front seat. She didn't ask Bobby, didn't call, she didn't know if UCLA would even see them. She only knew one thing. When no one listens, you go anyway. The silence of not knowing had nearly broken Kelly, but now, with a name, Hurler syndrome, she had direction. At UCLA, hair tied back, heart pounding. She stood at the front desk without an appointment. I just need someone to see my daughter. Eventually, a nurse waved her in, then a doctor, then Dr. Joyce Fox. Dr. Fox reviewed the chart, examined Haley. Calm, focused, present. She listened, looked, then met Kelly's eyes. I think I know what's going on here. Kelly didn't cry, but she exhaled. For the first time in months, the next morning, the facts arrived. Alpha-L-iduronidase undetectable, positive indicators for MPSI, Hurler subtype. Dr. Fox confirmed what Kelly already knew. No false hope, just facts. There was a narrow treatment window, enzyme therapy, possibly a cord blood transplant, risky, not a cure, but something. It felt like being shown a fragile bridge over a chasm, uncertain, but real. That night, in a dim hotel room near Wilshire, Kelly sat beside Haley, scrolling through parent stories. Some children died, others spoke at age 4. Every voice trembled with hope, every symptom matched. She read, progressive, life-threatening, and didn't flinch. She'd already lived through the fear of not knowing. Now, at least, she could fight. And beneath it all, a voice whispered, I knew it. Not triumph, grief, for lost time, for being unheard. But beneath the grief, possibility, not a miracle, not yet, but a door. Bobby arrived the next morning, eyes heavy, duffel bag in hand. He had driven through the night. Kelly said nothing as she let him in. He looked at Haley, small, sleeping, and then at the paper Kelly handed him. He read in silence. So, it's real, she nodded. No vindication, just quiet gravity. Finally, they stood on the same side of the storm. They sat together as Dr. Fox explained the next steps. Haley would need aggressive chemo to erase her immune system, followed by a transplant. The risk was high, but the disease was moving faster. After Dr. Fox left, Bobby stood by the window. I didn't want to believe it, he said. Not because I didn't trust you, I just couldn't picture it. He turned, but I believe you now. I believe her. Kelly felt something shift, fragile, but real, unity. By evening, a donor match was found, not perfect, but viable. That night, Kelly sat beside Haley's crib and opened her notebook. Not to log symptoms, but to write, Dear Haley, if you're reading this, you're 18, or younger. Maybe I never had the courage to hand you this myself, but know this, you were never a burden, never a mistake. You were a fighter before you could speak, and I was the first one who heard you. Whatever happens next, you've already changed everything. The next day, they met in a cold conference room. Charts, consent forms, the air sharp with possibility. The transplant coordinator, Allison, walked them through it. Haley needed immediate conditioning chemo. It was high risk. Then Bobby asked what they both feared. What are the odds? Allison answered simply, if it fails, survival is unlikely. If it works, it won't cure her, but it might give her a functional life. Possibly. That word echoed between them, balanced on the line between science and faith, terror and hope. There were no guarantees, there never had been, but they said yes anyway. that night, in the hospital, the silence between them was heavier than any beeping monitor. Haley lay sleeping, pale and still, oxygen tube beneath her nose. Bobby sat wordless. Kelly, notebook in hand, circled one unrelenting question. How do you choose to hurt your child in order to save her? Eventually, Bobby stood at the window, the city glowing outside. I don't think I can say yes to this, he whispered. His fear was raw. Kelly answered softly, what if we do nothing, and she never gets the chance to try? He said nothing, squeezed her hand, and walked out. Hours later, she found him in the chapel, alone. She joined him in silence. By morning, his voice had steadied. Let's do it. The night before Haley's first chemo, Kelly sat by the window writing a letter. Not for doctors or Bobby, but for Haley. Dear Haley, tomorrow you begin something no baby should. If I could take your place, I would, but I can't. I can only hold your hand and believe this isn't the end of your story. If you're reading this, it means you made it. Maybe you've forgotten these nights, but I haven't. I remember every breath, every doubt, every moment I chose to fight. You were worth it all. You are not your diagnosis. You are my daughter, my proof that love survives even the darkest places. With everything I have, Mom. She folded the letter, placed it in her bag. Not for now, just so it existed. Later, she lifted Haley from her crib, whispering, not from fear, but from promise, you're going to make it. And if you don't, you'll still be the bravest person I've ever known. The first dose was clear, harmless in appearance, but Kelly knew. It was war. The chemo would destroy Haley's immune system, her marrow, her defenses, the bridge before transplant. By day 2, the fevers came. Haley flushed and sweated, her breath shallow. Vomiting followed, violent, relentless. Kelly held the crib's edge, helpless, while Bobby stood behind her, silent. On day 5, her hair began to fall. Kelly saved every strand. The doctor said it was a good sign, proof the treatment was working, but to Kelly, it felt like Haley was vanishing. By day 7, the ICU was dim. Kelly hadn't left. Then, flatline, alarms, nurses rushed in. Kelly froze, eyes locked on Haley's still body. Then, a gasp, jagged, real. The monitors climbed slowly. She was alive. Kelly collapsed into the chair. Bobby arrived just in time to see Haley's chest rise again. They said nothing. That night, every beep felt sacred. The next morning, Dr. Fox said, she made it through the peak. Not a promise, but enough. Kelly stayed by her side, whispering the same word like a prayer. Breathe. 2 weeks passed. No promises, only waiting. Haley slept most of the day, pale and still, no sounds, just machines. Kelly stopped tracking numbers. She listened instead, for signs of life. On the 15th day, it came, a slight squeeze of her thumb in Haley's tiny hand. Intentional, real. That afternoon, Bobby brought Ethan. He held a drawing, their family under a tree. Haley with blue eyes, a cape, and a smile. Hi, baby sister, he whispered. I'm here now. You can wake up. Haley didn't move, but her next breath was deeper. That night, Kelly held her close, whispering memories. The first kick, the fear, the knowing. Then, just after midnight, a sound, Ma, then again, Mama, faint, but real. Kelly froze, heart pounding. Then she wept, laughing through tears. Bobby burst in. I heard it, he said. She nodded. Still holding Haley, a nurse peeked in, checked the monitors, and quietly stepped away. By morning, Dr. Fox entered with wide eyes. Her enzyme levels have doubled overnight. It's early, but it looks like the transplant is working. Kelly smiled so wide it hurt. For the first time in months, the room held more than machines. It held beginnings. Haley stayed awake longer. Her eyes followed movement. Her fingers curled around Kelly's. Her breathing steadied. Life was returning, not suddenly, but like spring easing into frozen ground. Not loud, but sure, alive, present, quiet. Every milestone felt monumental. Haley turning to Kelly's voice, smiling with intention. Then Ethan visited again. He paused in the doorway. Hope, he whispered. Kelly opened her arms. She's been waiting for you. He hugged her, then stepped to the crib. Hi, Haley. She blinked, then smiled. real and crooked. She saw me, Ethan gasped. She did. Baby, Kelly whispered, tears in her eyes. She really did. He held up a drawing, their family beneath a tree. Haley standing, no cape, feet on the ground. She hears me now, he said. She's back. That night, Kelly found a note from Bobby. You were right, about her, about believing when no one else did. You never let go. Even when I did, I'm sorry I wasn't there sooner, but I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere. Love, Bobby. She folded it, pressed it to her chest. No tears, just breath. Her lungs, finally, felt like hers again, the next morning. They walked together through the hospital garden, Haley in a stroller, sun hat bobbing. Ethan ran ahead, Bobby pushed, Kelly walked beside him. No grand revelation, just quiet joy, the kind you don't overlook anymore. 2 years later, Kelly stood at a podium near Portland. Behind her, a photo of Haley, age 3, wrapped in a blanket, eyes bright. She didn't need her notes. We think of medicine as answers, but sometimes, healing begins when someone stops long enough to listen. She told their story, misdiagnosis, setbacks, resilience. She told them about the word mama. She wasn't there for sympathy, she was there to give back one sentence, the kind that might change everything for another mother, like it once had for her. After the talk, she stepped outside and called Bobby. She'd do it, he asked. Kelly smiled. She did. In the background, Ethan cheered. Then Haley's voice rang out, small, thrilled, unstoppable. Mama, Mama, tell Daddy I walked. Kelly laughed. Did you hear that? I did, Bobby said. We're celebrating with pancakes. I'll be home soon. When Kelly arrived, Haley ran to her, wobbly but steady, arms wide. Kelly crouched just in time, catching her in a hug that sent them both laughing to the floor. Ethan leapt on top, shouting, family pile. Bobby stood in the doorway, recording. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to. That evening, they visited a small park. It felt like a palace. Ethan helped Haley up the slide. She squealed at the top, then slid down into Kelly's arms. Bobby tossed a frisbee. A golden retriever gave chase. Everything was simple, whole. On a bench, Kelly opened her old notebook. Its spine cracked, corners worn. On the final page, she wrote, she walked, then she tucked it away. Maybe she'd show Haley one day, maybe not. For now, she looked ahead, to a girl in a blue jacket running free, a boy laughing with ease, and a husband who had learned that love sometimes means following quietly until you're ready to lead. This wasn't a miracle, it was survival. Haley wasn't divine proof, she was human will, fierce and steady. The house was quiet, not with absence, but with peace. Kelly sat at the kitchen table, sunlight spilling over her laptop. Across from her, Haley colored, curls soft and unruly, a faint scar near her collarbone the only visible trace of all they'd endured. Kelly typed, not for publication, but for Haley, for Ethan, for herself, a story of belief, of breath, of the voice that broke through. She typed, deleted, tried again. Some things in life arrive not with lightning but with a whisper. She liked that. Mama, look, I made you. Haley held up a stick figure with long curls and a big smile. Kelly laughed. Do I really have that much hair? Haley nodded solemnly. It's because you're magic. The words landed softly, deeply. Kelly reached across and tucked a curl behind Haley's ear. You know, she said, there was a time I didn't think you'd ever walk, or draw, or say my name. Haley shrugged, the way only a 5-year-old can. But I did. Kelly smiled. Yes, you did. And for a while, they sat like that, together, mother and daughter, side by side, two survivors of a war few ever saw. A war fought in silence, in waiting rooms and long nights, in the thin space between instinct and science. Haley whispered, you never gave up on me. Kelly swallowed the lump in her throat. Never, she said, not for a second. Outside, wind chimes stirred. A bird landed on the windowsill, then flew away. In that stillness, Kelly looked at her daughter and thought, you are not a miracle, you are something greater. Proof that love, when fierce enough, doesn't need to shout. It only needs to whisper once, and be heard. Kelly turned back to her keyboard and typed one last line. Then she looked at Haley. Do you think people believe in miracles, sweetheart? Without looking up, Haley replied, they should. Kelly smiled and looked out the window, her hand resting gently on her daughter's. Maybe that's the point. Some stories don't end with fireworks, maybe they end with a whisper, or maybe they never end at all. Sometimes the quietest voices carry the most truth, a whisper from your child, a feeling in your gut no one else understands. You don't need to be a doctor to know when something's wrong, you just need to be a parent brave enough to trust that voice.